name's Dana. I'm from Mathematics. I'm the owner, and I've been in business for myself for 21 years. And I started without a business plan. I just found out I was really interested in business plans when I went to talk at my son's high school to their entrepreneurship class, and I realized that I had so much that I could talk about. So it's just something I really love. One of the things that really ticks me off about business plans is that I got to see what they were brainwashing the kids with in high school about business plans, and I got to see their sample business plan. And I think one of the things that really trips people up is that there's so much in a business plan that's just from the idea of a business plan. Like if you go to SCORE and you're like, I need help with a business plan, the idea that they have, it doesn't fit today's business. It's why people don't start business. They look at these business plans and they're just like, oh crap, I got to do all this work. And it's like all this stuff. It's really, really tedious. Now I'm not saying that having a written business plan isn't a good idea, but I think people overblow them. And one of the things that upsets me is I think a lot of people get scared out of business. My parents were like, you can't start a business. My wife, before I married her, and I told her what I want to do, and she's like, she says it's never going to work. And it's like they want you to fail. One of the ways that I get around the business plan is I really like the idea of starting like a micro business. I really like the idea of, what do I need to do to make $100? And figure out how to make $100, like this gentleman's graphic design idea. If you're going to be a graphic designer, figure out what you need to do to make your goal of a certain amount of money per day, and then figure out how to repeat that over and over and over again. And use that experience to write your business plan, rather than writing the business plan before you have the experience. That's one of the things that I love. And the other thing that I love is that there's this book called the 4-Hour Work Week by I can't remember what that lunatic's name was. I read the book like a year ago, and I was just like, this guy is insane.
Timothy Ferriss.
That's right, Tim Ferriss. And one of the things that he does that I think is really cool, and it might not be the coolest way to do it, but it's a cool principle, is he has like a whole chapter about testing your business idea using Google AdWords, which is a great way to kind of throw up a sort of semi-real business and see who bites on it. And a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to start a business and I'm going to invest my life savings, and it just gets into this big, long, crazy thing of I'm going to have investors, and it just gets, I think a lot of people just don't start business because there's all these sort of predications before you start a business. And his idea is just figure out what might work, figure out what will work best, and what will get you the most money. And of course, you sell a book called the 4-Hour Work Week, and you'll make millions of dollars.
Does your son go to school in Baltimore City?
He doesn't. He goes in the Inner County.
So I am a teacher in Baltimore City, and I am constantly amazed at the disparity between skills that we teach students and skills they need to be successful in the real world. And so, I'm amazed to hear that your son's high school has a class on entrepreneurship. That's awesome. It's really sad to hear that it's a bad one. But I think that in itself is a really cool idea for how we could integrate business leaders with social responsibility and education, because I think there's a real opportunity for taking corporations or small businesses that have been really successful and taking those skills that you're talking about and those mindsets and bringing them into classrooms. Because the idea of taking an idea of your own and starting a business is not really supported in mass education at this secondary or even post-secondary level. I mean, there are very few real-world skills that we teach in classrooms these days, and I think that is going to be the pivotal switch we need to see in 21st century education if we're going to continue being successful in the nation. Because the fact of the matter is that our education system is really archaic and outdated, and most of the things that we're doing in classrooms have very little relevance to things like starting a business. And the only people who are being successful at starting a business have to go out on their own and seek out people and opportunities, but I wonder what would happen if we brought those people and opportunities to students on a consistent basis.
Jessica, you need to go into politics.
Well, the thing that made me sad in my son's class was that it's so great that they have this entrepreneurship class, and my son was really excited that they offered it, but the kids in the class were so discouraged because they were trying to teach this sort of entrepreneurship idea from 20 years ago, and that just the paperwork behind the business plan, and they're supposed to write a business plan for the class. And a lot of the kids were just dreading writing a business plan because of all this work they had to put into it for something that might not succeed.
But Dan, you said that you started your business without a business plan, right?
I did.
So could you comment real quick, like, on what, I mean, so when you started, you didn't have a business plan, but you went out there and, so were you experimenting with business models, or like, how did you get yourself, and at what point did you find, you found your traction?
It took a while. In fact, when I started, it was pre-internet, and the idea that I had was, sort of telecommunications related, and that just kind of fizzled. And while I was sitting around waiting for that to take hold, I just sort of saw an opportunity, and I just kind of ran with it.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, I call it the Apple arrogance. You might have experienced it if you've ever been to the Apple store. But in the old days, when they were Apple dealers, the money that was made on Apple computers was made on the computers, not on the service. And when you needed service, there was some punk kid in the back and I was like, I just saw this huge opportunity for service, and I just got really, really excited about it. And the other thing is that Apple has a closed service architecture, so I saw there was an opportunity to sort of crack that code. So I was like building parts and soldering at the component level, and they were really expensive. So there's a lot of profit and opportunity in sort of exploiting that sort of closed business architecture that was coupled with supreme Apple arrogance. And that's kind of where I don't think I did it right, and I don't think I grew fast enough. But my goal was to make $35 an hour, and it took me a while to figure out how to do that. And that was kind of the basis of how can I make money as quickly as possible. I had a business plan sort of in my head, but I didn't write it down because everything that was around at that time was like the same kind of stuff my son has in his class, which was just like, it was just nuts. And I was just like, this doesn't apply to me, this doesn't apply to me, this doesn't apply to me.
To get into business plans, I would totally advise to keep it an executive summary. If your business plan is more than one page, you're getting into what he's just talking about. I am actually an advisor to businesses, and I've had people come in and if they had put their energy that they put into the business plan into the business, they would have gotten frustrated. And the most important thing is the experience as a teacher, and you learn from mistakes. So don't be scared about the timing, because it is organic. And just like this gentleman said, he saw an opportunity based on something. Those mistakes are going to create the opportunity. You just got to go for it. Give yourself, the constraints or limitations. Say, I will do this for 6 months, for a year. I have this thing. And then give yourself certain milestones so you can go for it. And that will give you the comfort to walk on that branch limb to let's go for it. Because you got to go for it. You really have to go for it.
Let's see, we've got in the back.
To your point, you can't have where's the guy with the fear of wasting time? You can't look at it that way. You're going to gain some knowledge along the way, and that's going to help you figure out what your next step is. If you feel like you need to write something out, you can very simply come up with your vision, mission, goals, objectives, strategies, and objectives. And that can give you a little bit of guidance without having it tremendously written out.
Well, here's my big fear. The fear of that fear is that there's no formula for success, right? But I feel like it's so easy to get trapped in this your mind of how do I find the formula for success. Just because somebody succeeded in business this way doesn't mean that way makes you succeed in business. There's place, there's time, there's the person, there's all sorts of variables. So it's like, well, what are the principles of the machine that I can at least understand?
Can I, we've got
Business model strategy.
Conversations happening.
Yeah, sorry, we've got people with their hands up and I just want to grab them. Here, sorry.
I just wanted to say that there are some points where a business plan is important, if not necessary. It all comes down to funding, really. If you want venture capital, if you want a small business loan from the bank, anything like that, even if you're hating the process of writing the business plan, you have to have the piece of paper to get them to give you the money. That said, having a working business plan as opposed to some template you pulled off of the Small Business Administration website is also very important. If you have a clear concept of what you're going to do and how you're going to make money off of it, it's always going to be easier to make the money than if you're just sort of blindly wandering around.
Sure.
Here, maybe.
This may be just stepping back even further. I wouldn't even say like I started a business, but like have this idea for an organization and been working on it for about 6 months. And we're like the person I've been working with and I've been talking about his business plan. We don't even know what goes in it. Like can anybody sort of like give a direction?
Nonprofits are no different than profit.
I mean, yeah, we're
Don't treat
a
it
nonprofit
different. It's a
and we're
business,
applying for nonprofit status, but
Come to the library. We'll help you. Come to the library, we'll help you.
go to the library.
It's right behind you, then up to mine.
All right, I just wanted to kind of speak on the essence of like the notion of wasting time, like with respect to your business. And when you think of a business, you almost have to think of it as a living, breathing thing and as a relationship, meaning that like 6 months in or a year in, if you're noticing you're not seeing results, then that's a time for you to be able to like take a step back and look at your business and figure out like what's not going right or what can be tweaked. So like if your business model or your business plan isn't working like 6 months in or a year in, that you got to step back and be like, okay, well, what can I do differently? What avenues haven't I looked at yet? It's a relationship. It's a living and growing thing, and you have to be able to grow with it, adapt, and change.
Right. Well, a lot of the things you guys are talking about, there are real answers, like specific advice. I would really encourage you to look into the lean startup movement. The lean startup applies the concepts of lean manufacturing, like that's why Japan became famous in the 80s, to forming a new business. And it takes a lot of the risk out of all these questions that you're wondering about wasting time, because it guides you to do everything but build your product, to actually see if you can sell a product before you build it. And you can't completely prove that you're going to be a giant success, but imagine if you knew there's 100 people that I could sell my product to for $50. I already have the orders in hand. I just got to go make it. I mean, there's some specific ways you can do that, and the website you can go to is startuplessonslearned.com. And as far as what to put into a business plan, my company we've raised. We did not use lean startup techniques, and I think we would have saved a lot of money had we done that. We sort of just had an idea. We went and built some web software around it, and we ended up losing a lot of money and having to change our idea. Everything's fine now, but that's why I'm such a big proponent of Startup Lessons Learned.